Get started, everyone. Firstly, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening and taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm Ross. I'm the Leinster representative from the Irish Laser Association. This evening, we've put together a great lineup for you in getting started in a laser. We've sailors of all ages and abilities to tell us their story on how they started sailing a laser. Usual Zoom things, any questions, put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them, or we'll get back at the end of the session, depending on our time. We're going to try and keep this session to the 1 hour. So I suppose I'm going to hand you over straight away to Brendan, who took up laser sailing a few years ago and is now our DBSC, our Dunleary laser class captain. And he's kindly put together this whole agenda for us. So Brendan, over to you.
Thank you, Ross. Delighted to be emceeing this tonight. So I started sailing a laser probably 4 or 5 years ago. Sailed with my son, who's now getting a little bit better than me. The bunch of people on the call tonight, we're very lucky to have a really nice group of people. We've got Finn Walker, who's transitioned right through from 4.7s into standards, radials and standards. And we have Abby Robinson, who's a master, a young master, and has sailed a lot before, but has kind of got back into laser in the last 3 years. Rachel Crowley, who runs what we call affectionately the kindergarten in Dunleary, which is for adult sailors who are really just getting back into it. So, and then we also have Rob Cage, who is the chair of the UK Laser Association, and is here in that capacity, but also representing Craft Insure, who very kindly have sponsored this kind of whole series. So we'd like to have Rob here to share some insights from across the water. The agenda is in front of you in terms of what we're hoping to get through in the next 60 minutes or so. And so we go relatively quickly through the agenda, and the purpose of tonight is to try and answer as many questions as we can proactively. And then also please post your questions into the chat. Ross is going to try and filter them as we go through over the next hour, and we'll have time at the end to kind of answer them, any questions that haven't been asked during the session. Okay, so maybe Ali, I think you've been one of the more energetic new members in the Dunleary fleet over the last couple of years, and you joined. I'm only there 4 or 5 years, and you joined a year or two after me. So I think it'd be great for everyone to kind of hear why you, as an adult, have jumped back into the laser and what that was like, kind of getting back into it.
Hi, Brendan, and hello, everyone, and great to be here. I had been racing in the Cruiser 2s and Cruiser 3s in Dunleary for a few years, and I was just kind of a bit bored being shouted at by skippers, and I really wanted to get back closer to the water. And I had sailed lasers when I was young. So my friend, luckily enough, was selling her boat down in Wicklow, and I bought that from her. And the next thing was then, where do I join? I joined the George and never looked back. For me, I was very nervous, I have to say, and it was quite it was a big undertaking at the time, I thought, because going from cruisers where you have the crew and you have a skipper to your own boat, knowing what equipment to get, where to start. So it was a bit daunting, but I have to say, being in the WhatsApp group that we have in the Dunleary fleet and joining a club in the George were hugely helpful. So for me, it was just to get back on the water, those lovely long summer evenings. Instead of sitting in your apartment looking out at it, I wanted to be out there. But it was mainly because it's a single-hander boat. There's no hassle. If you have it on the deck, you can take it off your trolley, rig it, launch, and go. And you have complete freedom. So you've only yourself to blame when you're sailing.
And Ali, one of the aspects of this boat that you seem to enjoy maybe more than the juniors is the social side. So there might be a misnomer that because it's a single-hander, it's a very isolated activity. Is that the case?
Well, you make a very good point there, Brendan. Yes, I am. Since joining the fleet, I have to say it's been just fantastic. So the social aspect is a huge aspect, and coming in after a day's work of 4 or 5 hours outside on the water, that's followed by 4 or 5 hours chatting at the bar. So it's very sociable. It's a very inclusive group. There's a very collegiate atmosphere. One of the lads mentioned that. And I have to say, as a new starter and somebody getting back into the sport, I've had nothing but good experiences from everyone, and incredibly welcoming and supportive. So I wouldn't let anyone feel it a barrier to coming into the sport if they haven't been a laser sailor before, and certainly not being worried about being alone. There are a lot of really good mentors in the group. And so reach out to anyone on the committee or anyone in that DL group or across the country. I'd highly recommend getting involved.
Thank you, Ali. And maybe Finn, we can kind of jump to you. You've taken maybe a more traditional route as a youth sailor. So do you want to tell us how you got into the laser, what you'd been doing beforehand, and what your journey?
I've been a laser for 5 years now, since the age of 13. And just the way I've always started was I started from an optimist. And I went from an optimist, and you could go through like toppers and fevers. I skipped that. I decided to go straight into laser, and then from there, I've never looked back. I love the laser. It's a brilliant boat, and it's really, you can, from any age above 12, you can hop into this laser, and it's just brilliant, And I think, especially with all the rigs and sizes, you can just hop into any laser at any time. And like Ali said, it is a brilliant boat for a single-hander, and I really enjoy it, And it's just easy to get started, to be honest.
And what do you enjoy most about the laser? What's the most fun part of it?
I'd say the competitiveness mixed in with the socialness, and just in general, just like the physicality of the boat, to have, whenever you come off the water, to have a kind of a workout done, And I love the social aspect of it, especially because there's so many people your ages. Every age does a boat, so you can be sociable in every age, and just it's brilliant to sail. It's a brilliant boat, and the competitiveness. All the fleets are very competitive.
Okay, and it's competitive, but people, it's friendly. So, do you take stuff off the water with you?
Of course not. No. Competitiveness for me is whenever something happens in the water, you never bring it back on land. Yeah. And even out there, in a sense, it could be a fun way to be competitive, And I just think that the boat is the most social boat out in a fleet, especially in Ireland.
So I do have to disclose that I've competed with Finn on the water. For a while we sailed the same boat, and he does make passing you out very fun for him. Not necessarily for the rest of us. There's always a very nice word being said as he goes by. Rachel, so Rachel, you're relatively recently joined, I think, either back into a laser, and you've set up something really nice and innovative called what we call the kindergarten for adults. Do you want to tell us about that and why you did that and how it's been going for you?
Well, that happened by accident. So I never sailed a dinghy as a kid. I went straight into keelboats when I started sailing after college. And it was recommended to me that I would be a better sailor if I got into laser and did some sailing in a laser. So in my club, I asked around. We have a laser that you can rent out and try. And then I bought a laser from another club member, which is how I think a lot of people do it when they're getting started. And that photograph there is of me being assisted in my very first day launching by one of the other members. And as Ali has already said, that's the way it works. People magically appear at your elbow when you look like you don't know what you're doing to give you a hand. And that's what happened that day in that photograph. And so I didn't realize that what I was trying to do was something that lots of people were interested in doing. That there are lots of adults who either dabbled in it a bit as a kid or who never did it and did other type of sailing and are interested in it for all the reasons that Ali and Finn have already said. And so the sailing manager in our club started saying to me, there's somebody else interested and I can get you a coach. And it just grew from there. And so we had what everybody thought was a secret WhatsApp group, which it wasn't at all, but a group of people who started getting together and we got a coach who'd come out, and the club supported us with that. And we paid for a couple of different coaches to come out with us in a rib, and it just grew legs, Brendan, to be honest with you. More and more people started saying, I'm interested in starting, or perhaps they went into the main master fleet and were a little bit out of their depth early on and wanted to spend a bit of time getting their feet under you. I know one of my friends had a rough day in winter sailing, and he kind of said, I want to do the kindergarten for a few months and get his confidence back. So there are lots of reasons why people might want to come out in a small group and go through some basics. And there's lots of banter out in the water. And we are, it's competitive, but not in the same way as Finn is describing. We're definitely competing with ourselves and saying, you know, can I drop the number of capsizes I do in a day? And can I actually launch effectively without coming back or floundering around the place? There are different goals at this level, but it's been really great. It's been a fantastic experience, and we're really looking forward to getting out on the water again now as things are looking up nationally.
So is just picking up what you said there, finding obviously maybe the sailing manager or some of the committee in your local club, you know, because this fleet single handers are taking off right now due to the current restrictions, and you know, clubs, it's one of the few things that clubs can actually encourage and enable people to do. But is it finding a coach? Is that key? Finding a coach who's going to be gentle and patient with maybe nervous sailors, or what's the key?
Yeah, so I suppose the first thing was that I told everybody I was doing it. So then you start hearing things, and the sailing manager helped me out. And then he said, well, don't just go and pot around, I'll find you a coach. And he gave some thought as to what that person should be like, because I think adults have different coaching needs than kids who are going into dinghies. I mean, we want to be coached all the time. You know, we want to be corrected on the water. We don't want to just potter around and mess and have a really good time and then come back in and get a debrief. You sort of want to work on something at the time. It's a little bit different, and we're probably a bit more risk averse than kids as well. So we'll be a lot twitchier about going out on a heavy day than some kids will be. So a coach will say, actually, you're well able for this. You know, I've been watching you, I know what you're able for, and push you a little bit and know you, and who'll coach in the water and pay attention. And we've been blessed. We've had some really sound coaches who worked really hard on this, and they kind of buy into the idea of adults taking it up.
Okay, cool. Great, thank you, Rachel. Finn, we might come on to you on this topic, which is which rig should I buy? So just for people on the call who might not be familiar, there's 3 different sizes of rig, and the 4.7 is the smaller one, then the radial, and then the laser. So Finn, you've been through all 3 of them.
Yeah, I have.
So why did you? What was the transition point? At what point do you decide which rig you're going to use?
Well, when deciding what rig to use or when to change your rig, you have to, like, for me, I took these 3 main factors. I took weight, height, and the experience you have in the boat, you know, like how experienced you are in that specific one. So if I started 4.7s, if I was experienced enough, I would say I could move on to radials, you know. But if I wasn't experienced enough, I would feel that I couldn't handle it, you know. So for 4.7s, I would say the optimal weight would be 55 to 65, with ideal weight for me would be 60, yeah. And I would be tall enough, but not, you don't have to be really tall for 4.7s. Radials, I would be 65 to 75. Ideal weight is 72. Again, you don't even have to be that tall for radials. For standards, I would say it's 75 plus kg, and the ideal weight, it's 82 kilos. And you have to be quite tall to handle that boat, you know. And as you grow taller, for kids specifically, you should move up in rigs. And as again, for experience matters a lot. So if you're on a borderline of, you're just hopping into a laser, you're borderline of, let's say, radial and 4.7, which you're borderline for weight, I would go lower weight, lower sail size. Like there's no problems out. There's nothing adding the risk. And then after maybe even a couple months, you can move then up to the rigs. It's very easy. Laser made it so simple to move rigs, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah, just on that, what's the difference if you're migrating from a 4.7 to radial? Do you need to buy a new boat, or what do you need to do?
or just for moving to a radial, you literally, battens are the same. You just need a new sail, you need a new bottom section, and that's it. Yeah, you might have to adjust a couple of lines, but not even really for the first couple of months. When you're fine tuning, then you change everything up. But you just need the basic, but you need the boat, the top section, the boom, or all the stay the same. All the lines stay the same. You just need the bottom section and a new sail. Even the batten staying the same. So it's very basic.
And again, just to reassure people on the call, like there's a very good second-hand market for sails and bottom sections. So as you're migrating up, there's always going to be somebody who's looking to buy even like the bottom section and the sail. Okay, and then just again, this is maybe more for the adults then, is the radial, and so Finn is right there. I would concur with the weight, right? So that he said for adults, the adults generally sail the radial and then the laser standard. And we do have some lighter, particularly maybe lady sailors sailing the 4.7 because it is a weight leverage topic. So we're seeing more ladies sailing the 4.7, but the radial is sailed by ladies and men. And then the laser standard, as we call it, or full rig, is only sailed typically by men. I don't think I've ever seen a lady in a standard. And you get quite a bit of movement actually, based on weight kind of criteria, in particular amongst the men between the laser standard and the radial. So either moving up or moving down when they lose a few pounds. So, was any questions around that? Or are we kind of, I know that can be quite technical.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of questions coming through. First question from Donal is to you, Brendan, and to Rachel as well. Do you have to be a member of the Royal St. George Yacht Club to join the kindergarten?
No, absolutely not. All comers gratefully welcomed. So yeah, it started in my own club, which is the George. But we have members from across the waterfront clubs in Dún Laoghaire, and I think a few people who launch without being from the clubs. Obviously, it's easier because you have to be a member for dinghy parking in those clubs. But as we say, we try and do a lot of our coaching on the water. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I think Brendan put my contact details out before, so I'm happy if you want to get onto the association. I'll include you in the famous WhatsApp group, which is now much bigger than it used to be. And we'll take anybody. Delighted to see you.
So if we say to everyone, if they want to join the WhatsApp group, just to maybe send us in their mobile numbers and we can get them on the WhatsApp group. And yeah, lots of people would actually launch from the Coal Harbour as well, wouldn't they, Rachel, going to the kindergarten? And there is, how do you say it, when you move on from the kindergarten, what's the next level, Brendan? Where do you go then?
Yes, so we've actually, thanks to Rachel, we now have a kind of what we call an adult or master's pathway. So when Ross used to organise the training in Dún Laoghaire, so I'm in Dún Laoghaire as well, and I jumped in with the crazy guys who were trying to, sail in, people like Ross who were doing elite sailing, and I had several heart attacks. So we now have a nice pathway where you can start with kindergarten, and there's a transitioning group in there, and then we have every week, and Ali now organises it in Dún Laoghaire, kind of racing. So people who are really masters, adults who are really trying to kind of compete in the Dublin-based sailing, DBSC, Tuesdays and Saturdays. And then at several times during the year, in Dún Laoghaire at least, and same I understand in other clubs, we do a weekend clinic. So we pull in people like, we've pulled in Finn Lynch in the past, Aisling Keller, and we pull in some international coaches from either from Malta or Portugal, where there are kind of high performance training camps, and they're kind of 2-day, very intense training programs. And all of that usually organised in the spirit of the sport, not club specific, but across, in Dún Laoghaire in particular, across all of the clubs. So there's another WhatsApp group, which is for the entire Dún Laoghaire laser fleet. I think we have 160 people in it, and anyone can join and anyone can participate in any of the activities and trainings that take place.
And I suppose just to say, I suppose we're the panelists here, we're all based in Dublin and Dunleary, but there is other training groups. I do know there's one in Cork, there's another one in Galway as well. And I suppose we might chat later on if we have time, Brendan, just about if clubs wanted to set up some sort of structure to get people out in lasers. I'm sure there's lots of lasers. We all know there's lasers sitting in backs of gardens, in club houses, everywhere, just sitting there that can be used, you know?
Exactly.
There's another question here. I don't know who'd be best to answer this one. What price might you expect to pay for a radial sail, both brand new and secondhand?
Well, we're going to come on to where to buy a boat, but yeah, maybe we'll come back to that one in a minute, right? Because we're going to talk about kind of buying sails and boats and stuff like that. So, so we keep going, which brings us into this topic. I know Rob, so Rob's chair of the UK Laser Association. We're obviously the Irish Laser Association, but the you may have picked up that there's this new brand or new term we're seeing called Ilka, and in some countries they now call the boat Ilka, the Ilka. We still like to call it the laser here in Ireland. And Rob, do you want to give us, like, don't give us all the legal ins and outs of it, maybe give us
no.
Of why this has happened?
It's just that the builder, the laser builder, who owned the intellectual property, so the trademark, including the starburst and the word laser, is no longer an authorized builder of the class. So there had to be there was a splitting away, if you like. So there are new builders all around the world, and many more builders than there were before. But Laser Performance, who've built all of our boats in the Northern Hemisphere for many years, are not one of the authorized builders. So there was a requirement to just change the name, which is really difficult and really difficult for the club sailor to understand. And it's not ideal, but there really wasn't any choice. And it was driven by the International Laser Class Association, which sort of sits above all the class associations around the world. So they got involved in all the legal sort of stuff, which unfortunately happens, and the outcome is that we're really talking about the new boats as being Ilkas, being built by some excellent builders who've got a great reputation for building other types of boats, have stepped in, and we've got new builders in continental Europe, in the UK, North America, South America. So, but they're all called Ilkas, and you can still buy a laser from Laser Performance, but it will not have a world sailing plaque in the back, which basically means that it doesn't conform to the class rules. So you can't race it at a top level event. All old boats and sail numbers 217, 250 backwards, the old boats are still absolutely class legal, and will be for the rest of the time. But the new ones, they need to be Ilkas to be able to compete at the major events.
Yeah, so if you're buying a new boat, a brand new boat now, and it has a number that's higher than 217251, it needs to have the world, there's a plaque just in the back of the deck, and it needs to say world sailing certified, and it'll have the words Ilka on it rather than the laser with the starburst symbol on it. So in simple terms, if you're buying a brand new boat, keep an eye out for that. If you're buying secondhand, which is what most of us do when we're starting off, then you just don't need to worry about this.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all if you're buying a second-hand boat. But if you're buying, say, a boat that's in a year or two's time, if you're buying a boat then that is a year or 18 months old, then you do probably need to be up to speed on it. And there's loads of guidance on lots of the ILCA websites, the EuroILCA, the European Class Association, lots of guidance everywhere. So like all these things, best to gen up on it before, if you're going to buy a really new boat. best to gin up on it. If you're going to buy a boat that's more than 12 months old at the moment, you don't need to worry about it.
There's in the FAQ section of the Irish Laser Association website, there's a document there, so you can read it. It gives all the details on it. Which brings us on to so we talk about buying secondhand and new. So in Ireland, CH Marine are the sponsors of the Irish Laser Association. The Irish Laser Association is affiliated with EURILCA, the European ILCA Association, and ILCA being the world. So we're fully in line with them. And CH Marine in Cork, give them a plug, but they do a great service to the laser fleet in Ireland, and they're very responsive, etc. So that's where you typically buy if you're buying in Ireland, and they will have all of the gear and the kit, etc. But look, most of us, I don't know if anyone wants to jump in, most of us, we start off by buying an old second-hand boat, and in the awareness that we're going to probably trash it, or have a few bumps and scrapes maybe in the first kind of couple of years with it. And again, the Irish Laser Association website has a buy and sell section. And you might find, older boats in Dundee or in some of these, these sites. And again, if you join any of the WhatsApp groups, you get yourself involved, or in your local club. There's sometimes you have to just encourage somebody who hasn't sailed a boat for a couple of years, to it's time to move on and let somebody make use of it. But it's not terribly easy at the moment, just given that everybody wants to jump into, a laser right now. So there's a little bit of a shortage, or it can be a little bit hard to come by them. But any of us who are around about for a few years now, we're always encouraging people who aren't sailing them either to get back into them, or maybe to release them into the wild. So in terms of buying, actually the other thing about sales, just to cover this off a little bit, you can buy different I was going to say grades of sail. So you can buy a brand new radial sail, I'm going to say for about 700 euros. A bit higher, 750, is it? Right, that's a racing sail. There is, and the racing sail looks like what you're seeing in the picture here. And at the bottom, beside the clue, there's a little button in there and a badge. And if you're going to race, then your sail has to have that on it. If you're going to race in a national event or a regional event in Ireland. But there's a grade down, which is what we call a training sail or a class compliance sail, which might be about 100 or 150 euros cheaper, and it doesn't have the button on it, so you can't technically sail it in an event, but you can certainly use it for training and maybe your club activities. So you save a few quid. And there is I would say a decent second-hand market in sales, like we said on the rigs as well. So you go for somebody like maybe someone like Finn, who's moving up kind of through the ranks, or you go to, sometimes we get wind of ones where Annalise Murphy or Finn or somebody is has a training sail that is in decent condition, and or one they've used for a few regattas, and that's a racing sail, and they're happy to get rid of it for maybe half price or whatever. I don't know, Ross or anyone, do you have any other insights on where to go hunting?
I think, and there's lots of lasers out there in boatyards that aren't being used. So if you're in a club, no matter where you are in the country, walk around your local club and you'll probably find a laser there. Ask whoever looks after the boatyard for you, ask the other sailors, and you'll probably get a lend of one, or at least get out in one and try it out. There's a good question here leading on from the boat and all that. Assuming I have access to a boat, what other gear would I need to buy before setting off on my first sail? That might be a good question for Ali and Finn. I remember once catching Ali up buying loads of gear.
Just on that about the sails as well. The first year, that's 3 seasons ago, I had an old sail, and that was fine because every time I went out, I was capsizing about 10 times. So what you don't want to do is go out and buy a brand new radial sail or a very new secondhand one, and then you rip it. So, maybe your first season getting into the racing and getting into the boat, you know, a €200 sail you could pick up handy enough, and then maybe get a better one for the regattas. But the gear to buy, I think it's really important. You don't want to be halfway out in a coaching session when you're learning and you're getting cold, because you can really get set back that way. And if you're capsizing a bit, which everyone does, you know, and particularly when you're getting back into the sport, you need to have decent gear. So the first thing I would say is get a good, you know, the long johns, rooster gear, or whatever gear you want. Go and talk to a chandler or talk to somebody on the group to stay warm on your hands and feet. So you need good boots as well, because I didn't have boots the first season I started. I was going out in runners and I was coming back in frozen and my feet were getting hurt under the foot straps. So your own personal protection and warmth and a good life jacket is really important. So get that locked down first, and then you can start looking at the gear for the boat. But a good life jacket and a good wetsuit and gloves to protect yourself.
And Finn, could you give us a bit of information or anything you could say about hikers on a laser or anything like that?
I would say for laser, you can have, for me, laser is one of the simplest boats out there. And I would say you could repair anything with duct tape and rope. It's the simplest boat to repair. And I think even just the first training session down, if you bring a roll of duct tape, you can fix the hole with it. Like I've had an event where I broke the hole and you could literally just whip on some duct tape and it's fixed, you know? So I would bring down for my first training session or first time out on a boat, a duct tape and some rope, and you're sorted. You have everything done. And that includes for hikers and stuff, to be honest.
Oh yeah, sorry, just to let you know what hikers are, just in case people don't know, is it's a specific support for the back of your hamstring. So when you're leaning over the side of the boat, like you can see in the picture there, they just help spread the weight so your legs don't get tired. So there's lots of different brands that everyone has a different preference for, and it's definitely worth getting a pair of them because it just makes your sailing much easier, much more comfortable, and you can enjoy it. Any other questions we have there? There's a question here I might put to Rob. Would you say the change from the laser to the ILC devalues a boat? Quickly, probably no. But what's your view, Rob?
No, I don't think it does. I think it's really unfortunate. It's not something that the class association globally is sort of, it's not their idea. It's been very much forced on them. I think it'll be one of those things that when we look back on it, we'll wonder what all the fuss was about. Yeah. It's a real nuisance now. It's a real pain, but I think in a couple of years' time, we'll all be racing Ilkas, just like on the shot on the screen at the moment, and we'll all be used to it. I mean, this is the third. Remember the boat when it came out was called TGIF, wasn't it? Something like that. Or so it's been through a couple of name changes. I think at the moment it's a real nuisance and it's very confusing. But in time we'll have got through it.
There's a question. No, sorry.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
Just a question here for Rachel. Might be a good one for Rachel. From Tom Brennan. If you've never sailed before, should you start in a laser or another class of boat to learn the ropes? And he's asking for his friend, by the way. He's not for Tom.
That's a really good question.
Well, one thing one of my view on it is a laser. It's a very simple boat. Wouldn't that be fair to say? It's got a stick that you steer with, a bit of rope, a main sheet that you pull the sail in and out with, and it's a very simple boat. There's not very little rigging on it, but then it can be quite maybe not
tippy,
not technical, but if you want to be at the top of the game, it's a very technical, physical boat. Would that be right? But then it's a very easy boat to learn how to sail, that you can push it out. And like, I suppose the whole idea of laser was designed initially to go on roof racks. So it was very easy to sail back 50 years ago. So it was called, whatever it was called, a Kirby or whatever it was back then, as you were saying earlier on. So Rachel, would it be you found it quite easy to start off, did you?
Well, and I was coming from a keel boat, so there was something that were so different. So like a laser doesn't have a groove like a keelboat. You all know, if you've used to sailing keelboats, that if you've got your trim right and you've got a light enough hand, that the boat will settle into a groove and you actually don't have to do very much. Whereas the laser, you have to work all the time, at least if you're me. Like I was listening to Ali talking about getting cold there and I was going, oh my God, I never get cold on it because I'm working so hard all the time. But I think if people like a physical challenge and there isn't a whole lot to it, there aren't a lot of lines to trip over, it would suit you. I think, if you're in a club where you can rent one out, or if you know somebody who's got one, why not have a go? That's kind of what we're trying to say to people. Try it out and maybe go out with another person who's in one or with a rib so that they can pick up the pieces for you. But have a go on a light summer day where there's a little bit of breeze and see what you think of it. There's nothing scary about it. And even if you get a smack of the boom, it's certainly not like other boats, you just feel a little bit sheepish most of the time.
So maybe we pick up on that a little bit, because I think there's a little bit more physicality required in a laser maybe than in some other boats, and I've said other dinghies as well. So maybe we talk about maybe Ali first of all, because obviously Ali, you've sailed lots of different things over the years, and I know you're a hockey player as well. In terms of your fitness, like what is there anything specific that you have figured out you need to do or work on as an adult?
Well, I would have to say, Brendan, having joined the Royal St. George, certainly being the use of my right arm at the bar is the most important. But no, seriously, so look, I would have played hockey all my life. I'm farming background, so you can probably see by me I'm fairly bulky. I do weights myself just to keep my shoulders strong. So I do 2.5 kilos, different reps, 20, 30, 100 reps every day. I don't think that arm strength is the most important. It's when you capsize, you need to be able to haul your body weight up onto the centerboard and get back into the boat if you can't do a dry capsize. So it's fine doing that for the first time, maybe the second time, but when you're out there for 4 hours racing, or, it's very tough to pull yourself back in. So I think I would say a medium level of fitness. Core is very important. So I know some of the girls that are in the fleet do a lot of Pilates, and you can see that. I think the core for the stomach area is very important. Now I know Ross is saying the hikers, and I know if your position is correct, your lower back should be okay, but I'm only 5'4", so I'm not as tall as a lot of the others in the fleet, and I'm quite light as well. I'm 9.5 stone, so I'm at the bottom weight for the radial. I struggle with my lower back, so I have to try and work on the core area. But yes, you need to be fit if you want to race and you want to stay out there for a full day, but you get that and you build it up. So I wouldn't let it stop you, but I would just be cautious of your lower back when you're getting into the sport, that you don't get injuries there. But light weights, rowing is very good. Get on the rowing machine, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
For aerobic.
Just to say, it's not just the ladies who do the Pilates.
Yoga.
Or yoga. No, because honestly, it's so I like you, Ali, I'm not the tallest and not the heaviest, and it can put pressure on your lower back, and working on the core is critical. And obviously then your coach will then kind of talk to you about the right posture on the boat. So when you're hiking and you're leaning out, making sure you're not putting pressure on your lower back. And do you want to?
One thing, Brendan, I would just say I hurt my shoulder quite badly the first season because I was trying to lift the mast and step the mast on my own, and a gust of wind took the sail. So it's just little things like that. Maybe get some help on the deck when you're starting to rig or in big wind, because the mast pretty well went over and pulled my shoulder. So it was okay, but little things like that you mightn't think of. So you need to be strong and know the right way to put the mast. It looks obvious, but you could get hurt, so just be careful.
No, and again on that as well, certainly I see it in our club, there are people who are not as strong, and there's always people helping. If there's something heavy, like you need to lift something or put the mast in, then there's always people around to kind of help you with that as well. So yeah, so you don't hurt yourself. Finn, just obviously you're then at a different level to the rest of us, right? Because you compete internationally as well as kind of nationally. So is there anything particular that you do that we haven't talked about already in terms of fitness for the laser?
Not specifically. I would say that to prevent injuries at my level, you have to really work on abs for me and core. And I would say for, I remember one of the things that my coaches said, that you need to just go cycling everywhere. So I now cycle my bike to school, to the club. I cycle it everywhere because that little bit of a workout before going out. And I think rowing is brilliant for cardiovascular, and especially because when you get to quite big laser rate standard, you could maybe be out of breath sometimes and upwards, you know? So just as exercise is brilliant to just keep yourself not from getting injured and so on.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, and the cycling is, I've figured that out as well for the quads in particular, because when you're hiking, you need to be feeling pain in your quads, otherwise you're going to feel pain in your back. So it's that, so that pain is a good pain. Right. Okay. And then just to kind of, like, it's a busy season for us laser sailors. Now, typically the season kicks off in Easter weekend with the Munster Championships in Baltimore, and it's the probably one of the more fun events. It's a lovely venue, and we're all just delighted to be getting back on the water. But now that's got delayed until kind of later in the year. So the next, and there's a mix here of the kind of masters. So a masters is someone over the age of 35, technically, right? So the first event of the national calendar is on the 12th, 13th of June in Dunleary in the Royal St. George, and it's the Masters Championships. So that's going to be very, we're very excited. Fingers crossed it goes ahead as planned. The Ulsters then are in County Antrim Yacht Club at the end of June. And then the Volvo Dunleary Regatta. So the lasers will probably be the biggest fleet in that event between the 2nd and the 4th of July. So that's one that obviously everyone's looking forward to. The Connacht Championships doesn't tend to happen in Connacht or take place in Connacht. So if there's anybody from Connacht on this webinar, then we would love you to host the Connachts, and we get to go to Galway or Clare or wherever, right, over the next few years. Then there's the biggest sailing event possibly in Ireland is hopefully taking place between the 7th and 14th of August, which is the ILCA 4.7 World Championships being held in Dunleary. And again, all going well, you'll have hundreds of sailors from across the world at that event. And it's a really great opportunity for any Irish sailors, because there will be, a largish allocation of available spaces for Irish sailors. So it's a really great opportunity to participate on a world stage this summer. Again, fingers crossed it goes ahead. Then the Laser Nationals are taking place usually that last weekend before everyone goes back to school in August. So this year at the Royal Cork Yacht Club. And then there's a new end of season event planned for the 2nd, 3rd of October down in Kinsale. And the Irish Youth National Championships, you saw a clip at the start from the 4.7s taking part in that a few years ago in 2017. And that normally takes place the weekend after Easter. But again, it was delayed this year, so that looks like it's taking place in towards the end of October. That's obviously the bank holiday weekend, I guess. So again, that's a really great event for all of the juniors from across all of the fleets, but again, the lasers will be one of the bigger fleets. And then just Finn, obviously there are international masters events. There's ILCA and EuroILCA events that people from Ireland, you might have 2 or 3 people from Ireland at different events around Europe. And then Finn, for the youths, I know you've gone through, I guess, the youth program that's available for laser sailors. You might tell us a little bit, just very quickly, because I'm going to run out of time, but just your transition year in particular. I think you did a lot of travel and you attended lots of events in that. So I think that's a really nice opportunity that's unique to the laser, I think, for juniors. Do you want to tell us quickly about what that was like?
In my 4th year specifically, I went insane on the laser. I I tried to do every single event in Ireland easily. I then did something called the B Academy. I did it with Thomas Shea, which he's a coach based in Kerry. And I went there to do a number of events through Garda. And then during that summer, I also went to compete in the 4.7 Worlds, which is the exact same as what's happening this year in Dún Laoghaire, except I did it in Poland. And it was a brilliant event. You get to meet so many people from around the world, and it was really good fun, and I love doing it. So it's a great experience, and I would love to do it again now, especially in 4.7, because it's a less physical boat. So it's more just about the social aspect and the competitiveness, you know?
Yeah. And again, as soon as you get involved with laser sailing in Ireland, and the Irish Laser Association is very accessible, and they're all sailors, and I know one of the committee members, 2 of his children are representing Ireland, so there's a very easy entry point into some of the elite end of the sport, kind of just by starting to sail and then getting connected with the Laser Association committee. So I'm going to play this quick video. I'm going to go into, and you can guess maybe what topic we're going to get into now.
Oh man, everybody approaching the mark at the exact same time. Boat handling has got to be good, and it was not. Right over the top. Catches the main sheet. 19, 7 is over. 5 is over. 31 hits the mast. Oh my goodness, and the boat slams up from the back. Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like it in sailing. The entire half of the laser fleet was wiped out right here at the leeward mark.
Cut. So anyway, I don't think anyone was hurt in that event. Rob, so obviously Craft Insurance kindly sponsored this series. You might just talk to us a little bit about insurance, because it's something that a lot of us don't particularly think about, but obviously to enter any events, and even for your club events, you need to have insurance. So do you want to tell us like anything specific about insurance for lasers, what we need to be looking for, and what kind of level of cover we need to have for our boats?
Yeah, I'll be brief, because insurance isn't really exciting, but at Craft Insure, we're really excited to be supporting the Irish Laser Class Association. I've been sailing a laser for 30 years, and I've personally enjoyed 2 Masters Worlds in Ireland, Cork and Dún Laoghaire. So as an insurer, we really are sort of right there in the middle of the fleet. Well, actually towards the back of the fleet, if the truth be known, but that doesn't matter. So let's quickly talk a bit about the insurance that you sort of need. So effectively, a boat insurance policy will cover your boat. The laser's brilliant because it's not fragile. It doesn't tend to just break. You really got to do something like the little clip we've just seen to do any damage at all. They're great boats. They're well built, and they don't break up. So even a 20-30-year-old laser is still pretty robust. So there is cover on your own boat. So if you rip a sail, break a mast, whatever, or get T-boned off the start line, then there is cover under all standard dinghy policies. The other thing some people don't think about, I guess, is in transit. So while the boat's in transit on the trailer, if you get the boat hit in a road traffic accident, something like that, there's coverage for that. The reason that we really buy the cover, though, is for hitting other boats, damaging other boats. Again, that's not great. You imagine it's going to be another laser, but if you're coming in through the marina and you stick your bow into the side of a £500,000 motorboat, then that's not a good day in the office. So that sort of cover perhaps more important. And the dreaded stuff we don't want to talk about is, if you injure somebody else on the race course. So that's where it really matters. And because of that, the notice of race in any regatta will require you to have insurance, specifically third-party insurance, which is this cover for other people's boats and other potential bodily injury to others. So pretty much every regatta and every club will require you to sign your life away to the effect that you've got that sort of coverage. Some regattas, they'll ask you to evidence it. They'll ask you to actually turn up with your insurance policy. some countries you're required to do that. Most countries you are. Actually, in the UK, you're not. We don't actually ask you to show up with your policy. Just sign a piece of paper that says you've got one. At Craft Insure, we're mainly online. So for instance, I keep my policy on my phone. So if I go to a regatta and you're registering, somebody says, "Where's your insurance policy?" You know, it's on the phone. And I think that that works well, and that's the way the world's going. At Craft Insure, we also have an app, so you got your policy document within the app as well. So effectively, the whole thing's done off your phone. Expect to pay for a laser, depending on how old it is and the value, how much do you want to insure it for? Something maybe in the 50 to 70 euro mark, something like that, maybe 80 if it's a brand new one. You shouldn't really have to pay a huge amount more than that. And I would say this, wouldn't I? Because Craft Insure, we're all online, but you know, if you come to us, it takes about 20 seconds to get a quote. We ask, we know it's a laser. We really only need to know how much is it worth, and within 2 minutes you've paid using your credit or debit card, and you've got the policy on your phone, and you're done. I think the other thing to check for when you're buying insurance is make sure that you actually do buy it from a specialist firm. It really matters when you do have that claim. Hopefully you won't have a claim, but if you do, you really want it to be dealt with by somebody who sales. And with us, it'll be dealt with by somebody who sells a laser. That's worth a lot, because you don't have to explain the basics. You really don't want to be in a general sort of claims thing where maybe that claim's dealt with, you know, in a call center in the other side of the world, where they wouldn't know one end of a boat from another. Avoid that would be my top tip. And that, I guess, is a quick whiz through all you need to know about insurance. Get out there and sail.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Yeah, appreciate that. And yeah, everyone really should have their boat and have the right level of insurance. So that's your top tip, Rob. I might come back to you for another one, but this is a lovely, this is one of my favorite photos from the winter season, which is Ewan McMahon, a Hoth sailor. I don't know where he is, but he's having fun. So what we want to finish up on is, you know, just some top tips and not ask any outstanding questions. So we're kind of coming to the end now. Rachel, can I come to you first in terms of what would be your top tips to anyone kind of getting started or who's recently started in a laser? What would you say to them?
I think if you're not in a club where people are sailing lasers, it's worth joining one, whichever that club is. And that's because of all these other things that everybody's talking about. So trying one, if you want to rent one out first, the secondhand market where there will be with your laser people, the expertise, your sailing manager. There's a whole load of other stuff there, like lots of clubs will run the fitness classes that Ali and Finn were talking about. So you can get involved with those. And the social side is just epic. You know, that is one of the great things about sailing, and you should be having fun. Some of what we're talking about sounds a bit grim, but it is just great crack, and you get out there and do something stupid on the water and then come in and find 50 people who tell you they've all done exactly the same thing and have a better story than you. I think that's what people should do, and make friends and talk to people. That's what will keep you in the boat and give you a bit of a lift if you've had a day where you really think nothing went right, because we all have those days.
Thank you, Rachel. Finn, what are your top tips?
Just one tip I would go is just get time on the water. You can do to go out on the water. It improves the social aspect, improves your skills as actually a sailor, and it's a brilliant workout anytime you go out in laser, anytime. And I always get told that time on the water is just brilliant it improves everything for your boat in socially and for skills. That's it. Just time on the water.
Great, thank you. Ali?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest joys in life is when you're screaming downwind on a reach and you're completely immersed in the sea. So the great thing about the laser is you can't get closer to the water unless you're on a surfboard. The speed is just pure exhilaration. But my top tip would be go racing, because the best way to learn is the racing. And it doesn't matter how many times you capsize, as long as you don't smash somebody's boat, get out and race and get out on the water. And maybe each year then pick one area that you want to improve on, rather than try and be brilliant from the start. Pick one thing you want to get good at each season.
Cool. Thank you. So there's 2 tips there. One is race, and 2, don't crash into anyone.
Yeah.
They don't always go hand in hand. Ross, have you any top tips for us?
Top tips is just get out there and enjoy it. Simple as that. And if there's any clubs out there that are thinking of putting together a fleet, is you can start with 1 or 2 people. Have, as I say, the social side of it's very important. You can bounce off each other, and next minute more people come in, and that's how it goes really. And it's fairly simple to get out there and enjoy it. So that's it. Just keep it simple, and it's a simple way of sailing, and it's a simple way to enjoy yourself. And it's a very, how do you say it? I've done lots of sailing, lots of boats, and it's probably one of the most sociable boats. Even though you're on your own, it's probably the most sociable boat.
Cool. Ross, while you're just seeing there's any more questions before we finish up, Rob, have you any top tips for us?
Yeah, I just say that the Laser is a sailboat for life. We've got people like Finn, the youth, and you've got young teenagers through to the masters who's getting towards 80. It really is a boat for life, and you see whole families where you've got the children and the parents racing against each other, turning up to the events double and triple stacked. I think it is sailing for life. And that gives you friends for life. So that it is incredibly social.
Great, thank you, Rob. Ross, have we any more questions that we haven't answered?
Yeah, we're coming to the end, so I'll give it a couple of questions that we give them quick answers here. A couple of good questions. One from Fiacre Rowan. We're a small provincial club, and like all sports, sailing has a high attrition rate for 14 to 18-year-olds. Any recommendations on how to encourage that age? Example coming from a topper. Finn, you might help me answer this one. I'll give you sort of my views on it. Like any sport, it is very hard to keep 14 to 18-year-olds in it. One thing with the Laser fleet that I will say that I see when we go to regional events is the 14 to 18-year-olds. There's a great social structure for them. It's the time of the year where they go see their friends. So if we go to the Munsters in Baltimore, there's great crowds there. They go have pizza. They chat about everything, and same with the other regional events. But Finn is probably best place to give us his opinion on it.
For me, it's just encouraging the social aspect, like before going out sailing or even after sailing, just encouraging that social aspect, even on the water, maybe by doing, like afterwards, you would do something like kind of running like as if that club runs summer courses, running like that, except you specifically going for 14, 18-year-olds, and maybe do in a sense of just trying to create an aspect of social aspects continuously through the week or weekend or day.
Brendan, we have another question here, which I'll just move through quickly, from Nathan O'Connor. I've got a Laser which is quite old, and the hull has a few cracks and needs to be repaired. Any tips or any websites to find out more information? I'll open that up to whoever.
You need to get a tin of gel coat.
Brendan, don't you have a great story of going down to Baltimore a few years ago where you damaged your boat on the way down? And if I'm right, you found a Laser up in the field in Baltimore somewhere. You got it down to you, and you enjoyed your weekend.
It was my first sailing event, and went down, and we had a bad stacking system, and the stacker went straight up into the gunnel of the side of the boat, literally ripped the whole edge off it. And somebody in Baltimore in the club said there's a fella, and literally he was up on the side of a mountain, and it was lashing rain, and he, in fairness, he fixed the boat. He actually loaned me his other boat, an old thing that he had, and I sailed for the weekend, and then I picked up my boat from him on Sunday evening, and brought it home. So it is unbelievable where you will find people who will fix boats and who maybe have boats in their gardens. But again, all of the clubs, I've been a member of several different clubs over the years, and there's always somebody who who has a part-time job or is a retirement gig of fixing boats, and there are, you know, and obviously then there are professionals who do it as well. But my suggestion is asking your local club who fixes, because it's fiberglass, right? So it's relatively the same whether it's a Fireball or a GP or whatever it is. It's going to be the same kind of process. But
there is a few. Usually a Google search, we'll be able to find some good YouTube videos on different type of repairs for laser centerboard repairs, rudder repairs.
Ross, yeah, I had the same problem. I just had a tiny scratch on the front of my boat, probably smashing into the back of you, but I had to get some gel coat and just even mixing the gel coat with the hardener, just how to do that. There is a very good video online, and you just mix the hardener with the right quantity, put it on, let it dry. It needs to be done in dry in the sunshine, and then you can sand it down. So there are a few videos there, yeah.
And there's another question here, which I don't know, Brendan, we might finish up on this one. What is the best cleaning product to clean a laser that has been sitting in the field for the past 10 years? I have a great answer for this one, is to get it out into the salt water, a power washer and salt water, get it sailing, and within a couple of months it'll be pristine, yeah?
Yeah, the more high-tech solution. But acetone, I think, is one that I use a bit and people recommend. And there's another thing I use sometimes called Peak. It's a, Ross, you probably know it's a fiberglass clean thing, but acetone is the one, isn't it, that people recommend?
Yeah, acetone gets rid of some stains, and then there is another polish, I can't think the name of it as well, which is a gel coat stain remover. I'm surely if you go to your local CH Marine or whoever your local chandlery is, they'll be able to point you in the right direction to a gel coat cleaner. Right. And do you want to answer one more question maybe, or what do you think?
Oh, yeah, might as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few questions on the cost of new versus used, you know, and just Connor Burns has, what's the price range for a new versus a used boat?
So I'm conscious of a few people have been doing both in the last while. So you'll, I think the brand new Ilkas, you'll pay 7 or 8 grand, I think, for them. Someone else can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm talking euros. I know I bought my first, that's 5 years ago, my first laser for, I think it was 1,100 euros. It was obviously an old one, right, at the time. But I see the second-hand market, depends on the age, right? So you should probably be aiming to spend about 2,500, I think, on one that's watertight. Make sure it's watertight, and all the riggings are all in good working order, and there's no big chips on the tiller and the center board, you know. So a good, clean, watertight boat. I think about 2.5. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Yeah, I just chip in. I think just check the spars are straight, and check that the centerboard and rudder are straight and true. And if you can get a second-hand one that's got a composite topmast, then that's a win, because that will just last longer.
And the composite being the black ones, Rob, right?
Yeah, yes. If you're feeling good about it, you could call them carbon, but they're not. I think it's about 5 or 10% carbon in there. They're composite. They're glass fiber with a little bit of carbon, and they bend exactly the same as the metal. They're fractionally lighter than the metal, but they take abuse much better than the metal ones. So if you forget to let the kicking strap off at the windward mark, then these ones will take that sort of abuse. So they're good. So if you get a boat with that on, that's a win.
Brendan, I'd just say, coming into it there 3 years ago, like I had the luxury of going out and the boat wasn't that expensive. So you have a level of comfort there as well, because you don't want to spend a huge amount of money starting off your first couple of seasons. You're going to be having bangs, you're going to be capsizing, stuff's going to get broken. So it's, 2.5 grand, 2 grand should get you a decent hull and a boat to get out there, get a couple of seasons under the belt, and then look at upgrading.